My name is Colin McDonald, Assistant Attorney General for the National Fraud Enforcement Division at the Department of Justice. 115 days ago, based on the vision of President Trump and Vice President Vance, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche announced the creation of the Fraud Division at the Department of Justice. And in the last 115 days, the DOJ has announced hundreds of major fraud enforcement actions across the country, including prosecutions against fraudsters targeting billions of taxpayer dollars meant to support our needy, sick, and elderly. That is our core mission: to protect taxpayer dollars and stop the brazen theft of America's wealth and generosity. Now, to achieve this mission requires all hands on deck, a dedicated coalition of state and federal public servants committed to guarding taxpayer dollars like they guard their own bank accounts. And today, with these folks behind me, we're putting fraudsters on notice that many hands have joined the deck, and we are at our stations to join the fight against fraud. In addition to our gracious host, the governor of the great state of South Carolina, with me today are U.S. attorneys, state attorneys general, secretaries of state, state treasurers, auditors, directors, inspectors general, the FBI, HSI, and other partners from 7 different states across the Southeast. These partnerships are critical to solving our nationwide fraud epidemic. Fraudsters thrive on government agencies not partnering, not sharing data, not sharing intelligence. The fraud-fighting team assembled here today is resolved to work together to break those cycles and bring the fraudsters out into the light. When federal prosecutors work with state agencies to share leads, data, and strategy, the American people win. Better intelligence, better cases, better training, more money returned to victims, and more fraudsters behind bars where they belong. Just today, the Fraud Division signed data sharing agreements with 10 state agencies represented here across 6 states to formalize our shared commitment to the responsible sharing of publicly available corporate registration and government's benefits payment data for early fraud detection. This is an operational partnership, faster access to critical data, and joint work streams that enable us to move quickly when fraud indicators emerge. That speed matters. Every day we cut between detection and disruption and imprisonment protects taxpayer dollars and strengthens the integrity of our federal and state programs. Beyond the data streams that are now starting to flow, we are forging more and better relationships with our state partners. For example, in North Carolina, federal prosecutors are working directly with state program leaders responsible for overseeing federally funded programs, searching for criminals committing Medicaid, SNAP, and daycare fraud. These same prosecutors have created a channel for the North Carolina Department of Insurance to directly refer fraud cases involving illegal aliens who are defrauding the American taxpayer. The Northern District of Mississippi, represented today, has formed a fraud task force comprised of various federal and state stakeholders. The Northern, Middle, and Southern Districts of Florida have done the same with the Florida Anti-Fraud Task Force to protect public benefits programs. This is a historic collaboration in Florida from Tallahassee to Miami to attack fraudsters who exploit SNAP, unemployment benefits, and other taxpayer-funded programs. In addition to these partnerships, the DOJ is announcing today that since the 4th of July, our southeastern U.S. attorneys' offices have charged 12 additional defendants with defrauding taxpayer-funded programs. These cases reach over $90 million in intended losses, and you'll hear more about those from our U.S. attorneys' offices in a minute. One scheme targeted food stamp benefits in the Southern District of Florida. On July 8th, 4 defendants were charged for concocting a scheme to convince food stamp recipients to sell their federal benefits at a discounted rate in exchange for cash. The scheme caused nearly $20 million in fraudulent EBT transactions at a quick stop convenience store in Miami. 2 of the co-conspirators are foreign nationals, and 1 even has a pending final order of removal from the United States. And as the allegations allege, he is charged with defrauding the American taxpayer. As of today, in that case, 3 of the 4 defendants have been arrested. Most recently, one of the defendants was arrested just 4 days ago when he landed in the United States on a flight from Jordan. The charges we're announcing today also include a fraud scheme targeting a program meant to educate our children. And I can't overemphasize that these are not victimless crimes. Every fraud case prevents bread from going to the table of a needy family, or health care from going to the elderly, or a child from receiving the education that they deserve. On July 15th, Chakessa Scott, her husband, and her daughter were indicted in the Middle District of Louisiana. As alleged, Scott was the CEO of Impact Charter School in Baker, Louisiana, which received state and federal funds. According to the allegations, instead of using those funds to benefit Impact Charter's students, Scott and her co-conspirators diverted over $1.5 million for their personal use, such as paying family members for fraudulent contracting invoices and purchasing luxury vehicles. Consistent with the charges in the indictment, a public investigative audit found that Scott used money to pay for a trip to Egypt and to buy a Land Rover, things that the average United States citizen would never be able to dream of affording. And yet you all paid for it. You all paid for that Land Rover. And now we're endeavoring to claw it back, to win it back for the American taxpayer. Fitting today's theme of federal-state partnerships, this case is a product of an investigative partnership between the U.S. Secret Service and the Louisiana Legislative Auditor, Mike Wagspack, who joins us here today. Thank you, Mike, for your hard work and partnership with us as we endeavor to root out fraud across our country. My message, in conclusion, to state partners here and across the country is this: the Fraud Division and our U.S. Attorney's offices are ready to help you scale your efforts, strengthen your cases, and deliver results for the taxpayers of America. Your partnership with us is the antidote to the fraud epidemic facing our nation. And my message to the fraudsters is this: our team is getting bigger, our resolve is getting stronger, and your time is getting shorter. Thank you all for attending the Southeast Federal State Fraud Partnership Conference. And now I'll turn the podium over to our gracious host, Governor McMaster.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, General McDonald. I'm happy to be here as well, and want to welcome everyone to South Carolina. It is hot outside. Sometimes it gets hotter. If you want to take a stroll now before it gets hotter, please go ahead. But this is a beautiful building. We started using this. It was opened up at the efforts of U.S. Senator Fritz Hollings years ago, as well as Senator Thurman and others, and it is gorgeous. And Senator Hollings said at the time right here, said this is the most beautiful new federal building that he had ever seen. And he was in the Senate for 34 years. But this is music to my ears, General, to hear that the President and the Attorney General, Acting Attorney General, and all involved have determined to make this a national effort based on a partnership. Now, the important part is not that the crime exists, not that it's outrageous, not that it should not be there, but that you have decided to use a partnership, a federal-state partnership. Why do I say that? We did the same thing under the direction of Ronald Reagan back in the early 1980s. His message to us at that time, I was a new U.S. attorney, was to go find those bringing the drugs into the country. And so we set out here to do just that. And what did we do? We put together a partnership. We put together a team. It was the State Law Enforcement Division and the local authorities, and the FBI, DEA, Customs Patrol, ATF, the Criminal Investigative Division of the Internal Revenue Service, and I said the mighty State Law Enforcement Division. It was a full team. They operated out of the same office. They had the authority to work under the supervision of the U.S. Attorney, which made it easy. And it was a statewide effort. And they used a different method. Besides having a partnership, with equal members on the team. They used the financial method, the one that got Al Capone. He was indicted and convicted, I believe, on tax evasion, not his other criminal enterprises. Well, we followed the money, and we followed through mortgages, the lack of mortgages on expensive property being bought in resort areas, on people without any money that were going in and buying brand new Mercedeses and things like that with cash money pulled out of a brown paper bag out of the trunk of their old car, those kind of things. There was enormous money. But ladies and gentlemen, because of the partnership, because of the exchange of information, a bit of information that one agent that meant nothing to him but might have meant something to her, we were able to put together that team. We indicted, I believe, as 133 people that brought in billions of dollars worth of drugs. None of them had any criminal record before, and we indicted them and convicted, after several years, every single one of them. I think it was 133. So that operation works. The name of that was Operation Jackpot. What has happened here is this is a larger operation. This is a nationwide operation that's going to be pushed by the Department of Justice. That will give it the power and the sustainability to get this done. And I want to congratulate all those involved. This was needed. There's a lot of money being wasted that could be spent very well on very needy things, very justified, very essential programs and people. And this is good news for this state. This is good news for this region. This is good news for the United States. And I congratulate everyone involved, and I wish you great success. Anything we can do in South Carolina to help, we will do. And thank you. Yes, sir.
I'll trade with you.
Okay.
I'm Alan Wilson, the Attorney General for the great state of South Carolina, and I want to echo what General McDonald and Governor McMaster just talked about. First, let me say this. This was an incredibly good day for us to learn what half a dozen states and multiple local and state and federal agencies are doing to combat fraud in this region of the country. When you think about fraud, think about it like this. The bad guys, those out there committing these conspiracies, they are not just depriving needy families from getting essential government services like food or even health care from getting them. Their fraud is an invisible tax in the terms of billions of dollars nationally on taxpayers around the country. When we don't work together, they are able to get away with it. These fraudsters, these con artists, they work together in schemes and scams. They are cooperating, they're collaborating, they are communicating, they are not acting in silos. And they are doing this to perpetrate this type of fraud on the American people and the people of South Carolina. Why should we do anything differently when we combat these schemes and these scams? We need to be collaborating. We need to be communicating. We need to be cooperating with one another. That is the only way we're going to be able to go after this type of fraud that's being perpetrated around the country. One such case, and I'll be very brief in it, and he'll probably talk a little bit about this in a minute, is that last year there was a border war case where the Attorney General of North Carolina and myself, General Jackson's here, we had U.S. attorneys, the FBI, we had local law enforcement, state law enforcement agencies working together to uncover the largest Medicaid scam up to $20 million in South Carolina history. Okay? This had been going on for about 4 to 5 years. All of these agencies had to cross multiple lines and barriers. We had to cross geographic lines to overcome the impediments to go after this scam. It's North and South Carolina, geographic lines. We had to cross jurisdictional lines. That's local, state, and federal jurisdictions. We had to cross political lines. I'm an elected Republican. My colleague to the north of me is an elected Democrat. None of that mattered. These lines, these artificial lines, should not be barriers to us going after fraud. Our collaborative, cooperative working relationship allowed us to partner together to uncover $20 million in fraud committed against the South Carolina citizens and a significant amount of money committed against North Carolina residents. There's half a dozen states and a multitude of government agencies here that are going to do the same thing to go after those out there committing fraud on the people of this country. We're coming for you. We're going to find you. We're going to stop you, deter you, and we're going to put you in prison. Again, thank you, General McDonald, for allowing us to have this opportunity to come together and work to protect our citizenry. I'll be followed by United States Attorney Brian Sterling for the District of South Carolina.
Thank you, General, Governor, General, thank you very much. I want to thank President Trump, Vice President Vance, and the DOJ for bringing us together today, the Southeast, U.S. attorneys, constitutional officers, law enforcement, and everybody that can bring to bear a lot of resources on fraud that is happening across our country. I'm proud to stand alongside these leaders. U.S. Attorney's Office demonstrates a strong commitment to protecting our tax dollars. It's your money that you pay. It comes out of your paycheck. You pay in property taxes. You pay every other time. That is your money that these people are stealing. South Carolina, we're home to a claims processing center. Just a little bit of collaboration. Blue Cross and Blue Shield is here. A lot of local reporters know that. We met with them. We reached out to them, and we said, we want to work with you. And they came to the table and said, we process all the claims for the VA, and there's another group that processes all the claims for TRICARE. So any fraud that is happening across the country, those cases can be brought in South Carolina. We have our first one getting ready to be brought. That was just from a simple meeting. The Governor McMaster likes to say, and I know General Wilson likes to say, we all know each other here in South Carolina. I think it's like that across the Southeast. It was one simple phone call. They showed up. Within a month, we had a case, and we're going to move forward with that case. I want to just take a moment to say that fraud is not just perpetrated against taxpayers. Fraud can also be perpetrated against families. A lot of y'all know the story of Gavin Guffey, Gavin's Law, 17-year-old from Rock Hill. He lost his life to suicide by being targeted by a sextortion fraud scam of Nigerian fraudsters. They posed as females. They were charged in a 5-count indictment, charging child exploitation resulting in death, stalking, threats, coercion, and production of child sexual abuse material. Unfortunately, Gavin took his own life. This is a week where that family should be celebrating his birth, his 22 years on this earth. Unfortunately, they are celebrating the fourth anniversary of his death. We brought charges on those cases, and we hope soon to bring it to trial. Soon we'll be doing that. The other case, and I want to thank the FBI for this, is Herb Kimball. Herb Kimball was a fraudster in a matter called Brace Yourself. He was selling braces across the country. It was a $500 million scheme that he brought. FBI put out a top 10 list, and he was returned to the Philippines. A lot of local reporters here covered that, returned from the Philippines to face justice. He was already found and pled guilty. He just took off before sentencing happened. We're looking forward to that sentencing pretty soon. Now I'm going to give it to U.S. Attorney from the Northern District of Alabama, Philip Williams.
Thank you, General McDonald, and Governor, thank you very much. My name is Phil Williams. I'm the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Alabama. I'm joined here today by 2 other U.S. attorneys from our state. And I will tell you that in Alabama, we are committed to the work to combat fraud. And when I say that, I don't take it lightly. We have a SAR task force, Suspicious Activity Reports task force in my district. We meet on a regular basis with our federal partners, and we have great relationships with our state partners as well. That being said, I want to highlight one particular case for you that clearly evidences the fact that there are people out there who will not only take advantage of a moment, but they will do it time and time and time again. Just this week, my office in the Northern District of Alabama unsealed a complaint against a man by the name of Michael Anthony Shine. Michael Anthony Shine had a company called Shine's Professional Services, largely a tax preparation service. There was a tax credit that was available to people that had been around for 20 years. It was a green energy credit. If you establish some green energy production in your house, if you put some solar panels in or a geothermal heat pump, which I'd never heard of to this case, you could get a credit back for that, up to 30% of the value. Under the last administration, the so-called Inflation Reduction Act expanded that particular credit grossly and in such an exaggerated way that people began to see it as a cash cow, Michael Anthony Shine being no different. The allegations against Shine indicate that over the period of 5 years almost, he and his employees at Shine's Professional Services filed upwards of 8,000 tax returns fraudulently claiming these credits for residential homes. And when I say claim these credits, we're talking about lying on a tax return that something had been done to the tune of $120,000 or more that had not been done at all. The IRS has paid out upwards of $65 million in returns, $65 million in refunds on those returns. That's a staggering number when you think about it. That's also not only a staggering number, but it's also staggering when you consider that those credits came year after year after year, and then therefore they also affect our state because it impacted state revenue collection. I want to thank the Criminal Investigations Office at the Internal Revenue Service for working with our office on this. Like I said, Michael Anthony Shine was taken into custody this week when his complaint was unsealed. The IRS believes that of that $65 million attributed to the returns that had these fraudulent credits attached to it, that the vast majority of that will wind up being fraudulent refunds. That being said, we are committed in our state to continue doing what it takes. We'll hunt it down, whether it be PPP fraud or other CARES Act frauds, or wouldn't it be something to do with SNAP or with EBT. But in this case, we found somebody who was actually assisting people, up to 8,000 of them, to put together fraudulent tax returns to literally debilitate the ability of the United States government to do the work of essential services on behalf of the citizens who were actually due a refund, not those who fraudulently filed. So the Northern District of Alabama will continue this fight. It's a fight worth having. And I appreciate the fact that we have a task force effort dedicated to doing so. Thank you. I'll be followed today by the USA for Southern District of Georgia, Meg Heap. Meg.
Good afternoon, Governor. It's a pleasure to be in this beautiful state. And General, thank you for letting me. It's an honor to be a part of this task force. My name is Meg Heap, and I'm the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Georgia, Savannah. And like so many other districts, we remain steadfast in our commitment to investigating and prosecuting complex crimes. Now, when most people hear the word fraud, they think of financial records, bank accounts, dollars lost. As a career prosecutor, we certainly follow the money, but what keeps us focused on the work is the people behind the numbers. Every fraud case represents a victim. It may be a family wondering why affordable housing projects have been stalled. It may be a taxpayer whose hard-earned money was diverted from the intended purpose. It may be the honest public servant whose reputation has been unfairly tarnished by the actions of one individual. And I think it's important to remember that fraud is not a victimless crime. It erodes it erodes trust, it damages institutions, undermines confidence in the systems that are supposed to serve our community where we live and where we raise our children. The case in the Southern District of Georgia is the United States versus Melanie Thompson and Toriano Bird. It's a great example of how the actions of a few can impact many. As the former executive director of the Hinesville Housing Authority, which is in Liberty County, Georgia, Thompson is alleged to have orchestrated a many years-long scheme involving fraudulent invoices, unauthorized payments, kickbacks, and fraudulent COVID-era loan applications, resulting in the alleged theft of more than $2.5 million, which was intended to serve the lowest income residents of of Liberty County, and also including not only those that were low income, our elderly, and also our disabled children and adults. The funds which were intended to assist those in housing it's alleged, went to personal homes. It went to jewelry, vacations, and cars, two of them being Bentleys. No single agency can investigate complex financial crimes alone. Our success depends on the partnerships. In the investigation, we worked alongside the Department of Housing and Urban Development, which was their Office of Inspector General, the United States Secret Service, and the U.S. Postal Inspection Service, along with our state and local law enforcement partners. Each agency brought unique expertise, investigative tools, and resources that strengthened the pursuit of justice in this case. The partnerships that we create and that we have here today are our greatest assets. Fraud schemes often cross jurisdictional boundaries. The fraudsters are not going to stop in Savannah, Georgia. They're going to cross to South Carolina. They're going to go down to Florida. They're going to go to North Carolina. Their intent is to take as much as they can from whoever they can, regardless of who it is, whether it harms them or not. And by working together, when we share intelligence and we coordinate investigations, we identify the misconduct, we build a strong case, and even more, we can protect the public. As U.S. Attorney, my commitment is straightforward. We will continue to pursue those who commit fraud, regardless of their title and regardless of their position. We will continue to work hand in hand with our federal, state, and local law enforcement. We will continue to strive to protect the public's money and the public's trust. Because at the end of the day, justice is not just about recovering money. It's about restoring confidence that our institutions operate with integrity, that public resources should be protected, and that no one is above the law. Thank you very much. And following me is the U.S. Attorney of Greg Kehoe, from the Middle District of Florida. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Meg. Governor, General, thank you very much for bringing us all together. This is a tremendous effort on a nationwide basis with state and local law enforcement, with the support of governors like you, Governor, to attack and disrupt these criminal organizations. And that's what we're here today, to talk about the pervasive nature of fraud across all different lines. I'm here with my colleagues from the Southern District of Florida and the Middle District of Florida, the Southern District of Florida and the Northern District of Florida, to put our coordinated efforts together along with the statewide prosecutor in Florida to attack this ever-burgeoning issue that is harming and undercutting the foundations of this country. The one case I want to talk to you about, and this will come as no surprise to you, Governor, that criminals don't pay taxes. Well. as a surprise. And we have an individual that we prosecuted that's from May of 2026 by the name of Daniel Liberti. Daniel Liberti had failed to accurately report his income taxes for 2021, 2022, and 2023. And for those 3 years alone, Mr. Liberti failed to pay $34 million in taxes. Mr. Liberti has pleaded guilty to pay restitution to the United States in the amount of $34,846,381. He also agreed to pay his debt to the United States and to satisfy obligations by selling luxury properties he owns in Miami Beach, which is valued at approximately $39 million. I have some photographs that are up. Will give you an idea of some of the properties that I can't really see them from here, but some of the properties that Mr. Liberti had. But he has agreed, as part of his plea agreement, to civil and administrative forfeitures of an additional assets of $39 million that were involved in questionable bank fraud activities that his business was engaged in over a period of time. The assets that Liberti has agreed to turn over to the United States include $414,508 from bank accounts in the original scheme, 3 luxury vehicles, including a Land Rover, a Ferrari 812, a Ferrari F8, valued collectively at approximately $1.2 million. He also agreed to forfeit 3 properties, including one in the U.S. Virgin Islands, 2 in Miami Beach, with a combined estimated value of $37,500,000. This is all since May of 2026. The total recovery to the United States to pay out to victims and to recoup tax losses is in excess of $73 million. I trust that some of the photographs, if they're coming up here, will show you the various vehicles and properties that have been seized from Mr. Liberti and now in the custody of the United States. I want to thank the efforts that you put together, General, and governors like you with this support, along with the work of the IRS. We engage in fraud, but the fraud goes across lines. This was investigated thoroughly by the Internal Revenue Service, CID, as well as the Department of Homeland Security. And I will give you my word, along with all my colleagues here, that we will continue this fight. We will continue this relentless fight to pursue and bring back to the people of the United States money that was unjustly taken from them, and money that's justly owed to the people of the United States. And I thank you for those moments. And if I can just turn this on to the U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Louisiana, Zach Keller. Zach?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Zach Keller. I'm the U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Louisiana. And I want to start by thanking the Governor for having us, thanking General McDonald for convening this. I also want to recognize Eastern District of Louisiana U.S. Attorney David Corsell, who's with us, as well as the phenomenal leadership of Kurt Wall, who's the U.S. Attorney in the Middle District, whose work that you've already heard from General McDonald. I'm here to talk about 5 guilty pleas that happened at the end of last month in a sophisticated fraud case in rural Louisiana. And I'm here to talk about it because, number one, it shows the type of work that we're able to do working with our state partners, our federal partners. And number two, it shows you the type of frauds that happen in rural places, even in places like Oakdale, Louisiana, which is where this case occurred, which is a small rural town in South Louisiana. For nearly a decade, from 2015 until it was stopped by this administration last year, a business owner in rural Louisiana named Lala Patel paid 3 small-town police chiefs and 1 town marshal, Chad Doyle, Michael Slaney, Glenn Dixon, and Tebow Anisha, to perpetrate a massive fraud scheme to allow illegal aliens to remain in the country. To do it, Patel paid his law enforcement co-conspirators to write fake police reports, alleging that violent crimes happened to the victims in the case when there were no victims, when there was no crime. And they did this in order for those people to get visas that are allowed for violent crime victims in this country. And Patel would pay the officials $5,000 for each name, each bogus name they included on these police reports. And Patel used these reports to exploit an America visa program. These visas that allow these violent crime victims to stay here so that we in our communities can prosecute violent criminals. In corrupting that righteous cause, illegal aliens would contact Patel in rural Louisiana, out in the middle of nowhere, and pay him for fake police reports for one of these visas that would let them stay here in this country illegally. And Patel would then pay his law enforcement co-conspirators to generate these reports and lie about it in order for these visas to get issued to people who had no right to be here. And they didn't just do this once or twice, these conspirators. They did it hundreds of times, making millions of dollars, hundreds of false police reports listing these people, each one lining Patel and his co-conspirators' pockets, but cheapening what it meant for the real victims of violent crime in this country who are able to take advantage of this program so that we in our communities can be safe and so that violent criminals can be held to account. The defendants generated so many fake police reports about violent crime that the small town of Oakdale, Louisiana, popped up on a national database as one of the most dangerous towns in the country. According to this database, people were getting robbed all the time. A ridiculous stat that reflected not real violent crime, but instead the millions of dollars that Patel and his co-conspirators raked in, perpetrating this scheme for a decade before it was put to an end last year. All 5 of these defendants pled guilty last month and are now facing prison time. And this visa program, which exists to help prosecute violent crimes, is a core mission of our U.S. Attorney's Office in the work we do. We're trying to prosecute violent criminals to get them off our streets, out of our communities. And I know it's a mission of Governor Landry and Attorney General Murrell as well to do that work. But it's equally a mission for our office, the U.S. Attorney's Office, as well as their offices, the Attorney General's Office and all of our state partners, to dismantle, to investigate, to prosecute frauds like this. And the reason for that is simple, because these frauds are poison that kills these programs. That we talk about these programs and you hear about them and you think, well, that's a great thing for the community. But the fact is that the frauds we're talking about here kill them. They make them so that no one wants to do them anymore. So this case reflects that shared and coordinated commitment we have in Louisiana to stop this, particularly in rural Louisiana, to dismantle these schemes and to undermine the programs that keep our communities safe and that protect our vulnerable citizens. So with that, I'm going to pass it to the United States Attorney for the Northern District of Mississippi, Scott Leary.
Thank you. Scott Leary, Northern District of Mississippi. I'm here with my colleague Baxter Kruger from the Southern District. Mr. Sterling, I didn't plan on talking about this, but we're seeking to extradite a man from Nigeria who was also involved in sextortion. And it also resulted in a young man committing suicide. And that is an abomination. And the people of this country have got to know that our kids are getting placed at risk with what's happening internationally and domestically within our country. It appalls me. We also heard the word epidemic earlier, and so I'm sitting here in the Northern District of Mississippi. So let's look at PPP fraud. That's just one instance. We've got $2.3 billion in PPP loans that took place in the Northern District of Mississippi. Over $1 billion was fraud. Now think about that. $1 billion in fraud in one of the smaller districts represented here. That number just exacerbates itself as you move across this country. And we are blessed to be able to work with our state attorney general in putting together a task force because, frankly, we are overwhelmed with this reality. And we need assets. And the most wonderful thing that I'm a career prosecutor, I've been a Fed for decades, and I sit in a meeting and I hear our administration say, pin your ears back and go get them. And that is so refreshing. So that's what we're trying to do. And it's amazing how small cases can lead to larger cases. We had one, Lakeith Faulkner. He was actually an SBA employee. SBA is charged with administering PPP, and this guy was manipulating the system and approving loans. And the investigation resulted in 12 convictions, $11 million in fraud recoveries, and it just goes to show what can happen when state and federal investigators and prosecutors can put their heads together and work together. That's what we'd like to do in Mississippi. And next, USA Eastern District of North Carolina, Mr. Boyle.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Governor. Thank you, General. I'm Ellis Boyle from the Eastern District of North Carolina. I was recently a private citizen before I came to be a prosecutor, and I've sat in the round table this morning and I've seen what's happening in our district and working with my great partners, Dan Bishop in the Middle District and Russ Ferguson in the Western District, and it is absolutely infuriating to see this money getting stolen out of our pockets as taxpayers. I'm a taxpayer, you're a taxpayer. It's going to these fraudsters. We're doing something about it. We're working with our state and local partners, all of our federal ABC alphabet soup. They're doing a great job. I'm here to tell you about a case we had in the Eastern District of North Carolina with a criminal named Nejli Mitchell, who was engaged in tax fraud. We worked together with the fraud division and the IRS criminal investigators to find that she had 6 employees taking advantage of a COVID tax break for self-employed people. We found 420 instances of her and her colleagues putting in for this tax break for self-employed individuals. They didn't deserve it, they didn't earn it, but they got it. They tried to steal over $25 million of federal taxpayer dollars. They got almost 14 million, and we got her convicted at the end of June. She received $754,000 herself for preparing these tax forms, and she's going to be spending time in prison, and we are going to continue to go after these people. I'm very encouraged to hear my colleagues and partners here talking about what they're doing. Rest assured that we're doing it in North Carolina too. Thank you. Next up is the Attorney General from North Carolina, Jeff Jackson.
Thank you. Good afternoon. This is what a united front looks like. We all know there's a lot of division in the country right now, but we agree on this. The acceptable level of fraud is 0. And as these fraudsters become more sophisticated, so too must the offense that we run. And that's what we're here doing today, is talking about how we can step up our enforcement efforts to do what every single person in our respective states want us to do, which is protect their tax money from criminals who are after it. Medicaid provider investigation fraud is one of the key ways that we have cross-jurisdictional effort in our state. We work very closely with all three of our U.S. attorneys. U.S. Attorney Dan Bishop is here. His office and mine had a $1.7 million case 10 days ago. Ellis Boyle, you just heard from him, a $12 million case recently this year. And Attorney General Wilson, a major case for South Carolina and North Carolina, over $20 million. This is what working across jurisdictions, working together looks like. This is what it can do for the people. And for anybody out there who is thinking about breaking the law to make a quick buck, understand, we are united and we are using new tools to come and make sure you can't do that. So think twice. And I will be followed by our closer, Mississippi Attorney General Lynn Fitch.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon. Thank you, Governor. Thank you, General McDonald. Thank you so very much for us all being here today. I am Lynn Fitch. I'm the Attorney General of the state of Mississippi. And it's been said hundreds of billions of dollars have been lost that belong to the taxpayers. This fraud happens every year, and we see that. Every dollar that a fraudster is pocketing goes to their benefit, not to the taxpayers, not to those who need it, and it's meant to serve. You know, President Trump called on all of us to take action, to step up our efforts to protect those who deserve those dollars, and to go after the fraudsters. You know, we're here today, and you can see that we are demonstrating that we are working together as a unified front, federal and state officials on the same page. We are working across agency lines and state lines. We are united as we fight fraud. And it's partnerships like this that bring everything to the table in this effort. And it's in the spirit that I'm proud to announce that Mississippi is standing up the Joint Task Force Vigilance with the support of the U.S. Department of Justice, my office, along with U.S. Attorney Baxter Kruger, U.S. Attorney Scott Leary, and the FBI agent in charge, Robert Eichhoff. So we are surging our resources, putting our personnel together. We're going to use every tool at our disposal to go after and recover those fraud dollars and recover from those fraudsters. We'll be bringing on experienced and qualified prosecutors and seasoned law enforcement officers dedicated to making Mississippi safe, protecting Mississippi taxpayers, and restoring law and order. The Joint Task Force Vigilance gives us statewide reach. It enhances the coordination, and it gives us access to all the resources across our respective offices. Together we'll bring the full authority of our offices to go after those individuals that are con artists, that are grifters, that are fraudsters, and they're the scammers. They will be held accountable in the state of Mississippi through the unified work of our Joint Task Force Vigilance. We appreciate the support of President Trump and the administration, and we are excited to stand up the first of this kind of task force in the state of Mississippi. Thank you again, General McDonald. Thank you.
Thank you, General Fitch. We'll take a couple questions at this time. Yes, it's a great question, that being the tools that we're bringing to bear in these new relationships. So the primary tool that I would say relates to data that is owned in many instances by state agencies. And so we reached this morning 10 different memorandum of understandings with our state partners to be able to provide data to our fraud prosecutors across the country so that we can illuminate the pathways to fraud. If we follow the data doesn't lie. And where we follow the data, where we have access to the data, those silos are broken down and the fraudsters are brought into the light. And by virtue of these partnerships, then we're able to scale the prosecutions that we can bring by virtue of following the data. And then I would also say just the shared emphasis that this room is demonstrating with great energy towards solving this problem is the other benefit to the American people, to know that the entire state and federal apparatus is coming together to say, we're going to solve this together. We're not going to try to solve it apart because we won't be able to. We're going to come together to solve this because the American people demand it of us, and we're going to do our best to meet our obligations. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Reagan Rice from the Daily Caller. How did this fraud go unnoticed before? Well, why did it take until now to discover all of this?
So the question is, why did it take until now to discover this? Our fraud prosecutors and fraud agents across the country have long been toiling with this problem and endeavoring to solve it. The moment right now, we have leadership in place who have decided to make this a priority, to give the tools to the agents that have been laboring in this field, to give the tools to the prosecutors to make sure that we can scale our efforts and actually build a fraud team that's commensurate to the fraud problem. So instead of little bites at the problem, we are endeavoring to solve the entire problem by putting an emphasis on it, by putting our money where our mouth is, by resourcing this fight, and by developing these partnerships like we had this morning with a roundtable with over 40 state and federal partners to ensure that we're bringing everything we can to bear on the fight against fraud. One final question. This will make it exceptionally easier. We have for long relied on hero agents and hero prosecutors and hero state agents and hero task force officers to do this work across the country. What we're doing now is we're building a program underneath those hero agents and those hero prosecutors to make sure that they have the data tools, the AI analytical tools, and all of those resources to support their work. The good news is we still have those hero agents, those hero prosecutors doing this work. We now have the ability to quarterback those efforts by virtue of the National Fraud Enforcement Division being created at the direction of President Trump. We now have that ability to quarterback the field of fraud, to have the full field in view so that we can know where we need resources, where is the data missing, and how can we plug those gaps both with respect to data fundamentals being in place and the partnerships that are really important to bring to bear. Thank you all.
Which way do we go?
Thanks.
Stand here for a picture with General McDonald.